Hi there, I'm going to show you a cool Steve Cropper, Reggie Young type of lick that's used in a bunch of different songs, and it's also played a lot on dobros, which is kind of the style I was doing it here, sort of like a dobro player would do with the alternating between the notes. You hear that a lot in bluegrass dobro especially. But these are all just different ways of playing the same thing. So the basic chordal outline here would be E, A, B7, and back to E. Okay, so this starts out, we're going to be doing sixth, so that just means that these notes are 6 scale tones apart, more or less. So since we're starting over E, this first pattern is going to start down here, where we're playing the G sharp on the 3rd string, and then the 1st string open. You can see how both those notes are in the E chord. That's the 3rd and the 5th of E. In other words, the 3rd and 5th scale tones of the E major scale. Okay, and then the next shape we're going to do, also 6th, is going to be the A on the 3rd string and the F sharp of the 1st string. So far we have this and this. Okay, and then from there, we're just going to take that A and F sharp note and move it up to a B and G sharp note. These are also notes of an E chord. Like if we took a C chord and moved it up C, D, E, we would end up with this shape. And those 2 4s, or in other words that B and G sharp note, are just a part of that chord. So we have G sharp E, A and F sharp, B and G sharp. And all those work really well over E. Okay, now let's look at a couple variations of that before we move on to the 4 chord A. So if we took that G sharp and E and we just kind of swapped it so the G sharp is on top and the E is on bottom, we get this. But instead of this being a 6th, because we've inverted it, now it's a 3rd. So we have the E and G sharp, which would bring us to this. Our next sharp is going to be F sharp on bottom, A on top. Where here we had the A on bottom and the F sharp on top. See, this is just the same thing, but we've inverted it. Okay, so we have this, and then we have this. Okay, and just like before, we're going to take that second shape and we're just going to go up 2 frets with it. So we have E and G sharp, F sharp and A, G sharp and B. Down here it was that, but backwards. Okay, now let's take that, what we just did the 3rds there, and let's move it down an octave. So instead of this E being in the bass, this E will be in the bass. So now we have E and G sharp on the 2nd fret of the 4th string and the 1st fret of the 3rd string. Okay, and then we're going to go up here to our F sharp and A. Okay, and then we're going to go to G sharp and B at the 6th and 4th frets on the 4th and 3rd string. So we have this, this, and this. Alright, so that's 3 different ways of playing the same thing. We've had the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. Okay, Okay, now let's look at one more way, one more variation. Now this time, we're taking this E, okay, and we're bringing it down an octave, but we're leaving the G sharp the same. So now we have the open 6th string, and then we have the G sharp on the 1st fret of the 3rd string. Okay, now those two notes are 10 scale tones apart, so now we're playing tenths. Okay, so you've probably already guessed the next shape. The next shape is going to be 2 on the 6th string and 2 on the 3rd string. That's an F sharp and an A note. Okay, and then you probably guessed this one too. We're just going to slide that up 2 frets. So that's the 4 patterns that we can do over the E chord. And if you're improvising, you could use any of those. You know, the choice is yours. If you want to do, you know, like a lower, or if you want to be in like a higher, like almost like a dobro register. If you're on electric, you can even go up higher if you wanted to. So let's take a look at those same patterns, but now we're going to go to what we would play over an A chord. So basically we're just moving this stuff up more or less a fourth. So the first pattern would look like this. So that's C sharp on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, A on the 1st fret of the 1st string, and then we have D and B, and E and C sharp. You've probably heard it already, but this is very similar. I'm in a different key, but this is a similar sequence to Brown Eyed Girl. Except that song was actually in the key of G, but we're not going to do that. We're going to stay in the key of E here for simplicity's sake. So that's our first A pattern. Alright, so let's look at another A pattern. Another thing we could do is we could go up here to the A and C sharp at the 2nd and 1st string. So that's 10th fret in the 2nd string, 9th fret in the 1st string. Okay, and then we move up to this shape. We just change our fingering a bit. We have B and D at the 12th and 10th fret. And we move that up 2 frets. So that's our second pattern. We have the first A pattern, then the second A pattern. And then as before, we're going to take the second pattern, we're going to move it down an octave. So now we have A and C sharp, then we have B and D, C sharp and E. Okay, then finally, our 4th pattern over the A chord, we're going to do our tenths again. So we have A at the 5th fret of the E string, and then we have C sharp on the 6th fret of the G string. Okay, and then we have B and D, C sharp and E, the 9th fret. So we got 5 and 6, 7 and 7, 9 and 9. That's our fret numbers there. Alright, now we're over our 5 chord now. We're going to go to the B7 chord. And this time we're going to go backwards. We're going to do a slightly different pattern. So the first iteration of this pattern is going to look like this. And you can hear how that wants to resolve to E. Okay, so it's going to be over our B7. Alright, let's look at the first variation of that. The first variation is going to be up here. I'm going to go through this one a little faster. So we have B and D sharp, A and C sharp, G sharp and B, F sharp and A. Okay, now continuing with our pattern, we're going to move that down an octave. And then finally we have, that's B and D sharp, A and C sharp, G sharp and B, and then F sharp and A. So that's the 4 patterns that you can use over the B7 chord. And you don't necessarily have to be descending. I mean, you can improvise anything you want with these patterns, but the bottom line is that's 4 different ways to sort of play this Reggie Young, Steve Cropper type thing that's in a million. It was used in a million sessions on a million songs, from Brown Eyed Girl to Drift Away by Dobie Gray. Reggie Young used some stuff like that on Drift Away. That's pretty cool. So anyway, yeah, just play around with that. Record yourself playing a chord vamp with those 3 chords, and then go back and play over it using those shapes and see what kind of cool stuff you can come up with. It's a really easy way to outline the chords, and it's almost guaranteed to sound good. It's not like, you know, pentatonic and blues scale soloing where there's sometimes these really off notes. These shapes are pretty much guaranteed to sound good over the chord you're playing over, if you're playing the right shape over the right chord. So anyway, I want to apologize for you know, the frequency of the videos on my channel is going to be decreasing for the next month or so. I'm starting a new job, and I'm in a new place, and waiting yet to get another place, which is supposed to happen at the end of the month. So if everything goes smooth with that, hopefully I can start doing some more videos, you know, sometime next month or shortly thereafter. But for now, it's going to be these low-tech videos, just using the camera mic and an acoustic guitar, and hope y'all get something out of it. Please like, share, subscribe, etc., all the stuff that everybody says. And I'm Harvey signing off. I'll see you next time. Bye.